The dying alien child no doctor could save, until a human nurse refused to give up. When medicine fails. The hospital of last hope. The Galactic Medical Center floated in silent orbit above the planet Nexera, its white walls gleaming against the darkness of space. This was where the galaxy sent its most desperate cases. The impossible illnesses. The diseases that defied every known cure. Inside its sterile corridors, the greatest medical minds from 20 different species worked tirelessly to save lives that others had given up on. But tonight, even they had admitted defeat. In room 347, a small figure lay motionless on the medical bed. Kira was only 8 years old by human standards, though her species, the Villani, aged differently. Her skin, normally a soft golden color, had turned pale gray. The bioluminescent patterns that should have danced across her forehead were dim and fading. She looked like a star slowly dying. Around her bed stood 5 of the most respected doctors in the galaxy. Dr. Zenther, a towering insectoid being with multiple eyes that could see into different spectrums of light. Dr. Melissa Chen, a human surgeon who had performed over 10,000 successful operations. Dr. Vorash, whose crystalline body could analyze molecular structures just by touch. And 2 others, each a master of their field. All of them wore the same expression, helpless resignation. The impossible diagnosis. "It's progressing faster than we calculated," Dr. Zenther said, his translator turning his clicking sounds into standard speech. "Her neural pathways are shutting down one by one. At this rate, she has perhaps 6 hours remaining." Kira's mother, Serena, stood in the corner of the room, her golden skin also pale with grief. Her hands trembled as she watched the doctors examine her daughter. "There must be something," she whispered. "Some treatment you haven't tried." Dr. Chen shook her head gently. "We've exhausted every option. The Villani Cascade Syndrome is attacking her nervous system at the cellular level. We can slow it temporarily, but we can't stop it. No one has ever survived past stage 4. Your daughter is at stage 6. What she's saying," Vorash added more bluntly, "is that this is beyond our knowledge. The disease rewrites itself faster than we can understand it. It adapts to every treatment. It's almost as if it's intelligent." Serena's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, her hand covering her mouth to muffle her sobs. Her husband had died in a transport accident 2 years ago. Kira was all she had left. And now the universe was taking her daughter too. "I'm so sorry," Dr. Chen said, kneeling beside Serena. "We'll make sure she's comfortable. She won't feel any pain. That's all we can do now." The doctors filed out slowly, each one carrying the weight of their failure. In the medical profession, you learn to accept that you couldn't save everyone. But it never got easier. Especially when the patient was a child. The night shift begins. As the senior doctors left, the night shift began. The hospital grew quieter. Most of the day staff went home. The halls dimmed to simulate night cycles, helping patients rest. But in room 347, rest wouldn't come. Kira's body was fighting a battle it couldn't win. That's when Sarah Mitchell arrived for her shift. Sarah was a human nurse, 32 years old, with red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and tired eyes that had seen too much suffering. She'd been working at the Galactic Medical Center for 3 years, ever since she left Earth looking for a fresh start after her own personal losses. She wasn't a doctor. She didn't have multiple degrees or advanced knowledge of alien biology. She was just a nurse. The person who checked vital signs, administered medications, and sat with patients when they were scared. The person who held hands during the long, dark hours when the doctors were gone. But Sarah had something that no amount of medical training could teach: she never gave up. Ever. A nurse's determination. Sarah entered room 347 and immediately checked the monitors. Her eyes widened slightly at the readings, but her expression remained calm. She'd learned early in her career that patients and families could read panic on a caregiver's face. So she kept hers steady, even when her heart was breaking. "Hello," she said softly to Serena. I'm Sarah. I'll be Kira's nurse tonight. Serena looked up, her eyes red from crying. They said there's nothing more they can do. Sarah knelt beside Kira's bed, gently taking the child's small hand in hers. Kira's fingers were cold, her breathing shallow. I know what the doctors said, Sarah replied quietly. But I'm going to stay with her anyway. She shouldn't be alone. And neither should you. She's dying, Serena whispered, the word catching in her throat. Sarah looked at Kira's pale face, at the fading light patterns on her skin, at the monitors showing systems slowly failing. Every logical part of her brain agreed with the doctor's assessment. This child was dying. The best they could do was make her comfortable. But Sarah had never been particularly good at accepting the logical answer when her heart screamed something different. Maybe, Sarah said. But she's still fighting. Look. She pointed to one of the monitors. Her heart rate is steady. Her brain activity is still strong in certain areas. She's not giving up. So neither will I. Reading the patient. For the next hour, Sarah did what she always did. She studied Kira's chart in detail, reading every test result, every treatment attempt, every note the doctors had made. She looked at the progression of the disease, how it had responded to different interventions, where it seemed strongest and where it seemed weaker. The other nurses thought Sarah was obsessive. The doctors found her detailed questions annoying sometimes. But Sarah had learned something in her years of nursing. Doctors looked at diseases. Nurses looked at patients. And sometimes that difference mattered. Tell me about Kira, Sarah said to Serena as she worked. What's she like when she's healthy? Serena seemed surprised by the question. She loves music. Villani children can hear frequencies humans can't detect. Kira used to dance to the star songs, the electromagnetic pulses that stars emit. She said they sang to her. Sarah paused. Star songs? Electromagnetic frequencies? Yes. Our people have always been sensitive to them. It's part of our biology. The patterns on our skin actually respond to different frequencies. They're not just decorative, they're receptors. Sarah's mind began racing. She pulled up Kira's chart again, looking at the neural pathway diagrams. The disease was attacking the nervous system, but specifically the pathways that connected to those skin receptors. It was shutting down Kira's ability to sense the electromagnetic spectrum around her. What happens when a Villani loses that sensitivity? Sarah asked carefully. Serena looked confused. I don't know. It's never happened. It's fundamental to who we are. Like asking what happens when a human loses their sense of touch entirely. The body wouldn't know how to function. A dangerous idea. Sarah stood suddenly, her heart pounding. Wait here, she said, and rushed out of the room. She found Dr. Chen in the break room, exhausted and staring at a cup of coffee. Dr. Chen, I need to ask you something about Kira. The doctor looked up, surprised. Sarah, we've done everything we can. I know. But I have an idea. It might be crazy, but please just listen. Dr. Chen sighed but nodded. Go ahead. The Villani cascade syndrome attacks the neural pathways that connect to their electromagnetic receptors, right? It's shutting down their ability to sense EM frequencies. Yes, that's part of it. But it's also attacking other systems. But those other systems fail because the primary system fails first, Sarah interrupted, her words coming faster. What if the disease isn't just a disease? What if it's the body's response to something environmental? What if Kira's receptors are overloaded, and the cascade is actually a defensive shutdown? Dr. Chen frowned. That's not in any of the literature about this syndrome. Because maybe no one thought to look at it that way, Sarah said. Doctors see a disease attacking a system. But what if nurses are right, and we should look at the patient's environment first? Kira's been in this hospital for 2 weeks. Hospitals are full of electromagnetic equipment. Monitors, scanners, communication devices, all operating on frequencies. What if we're drowning her in the very thing her body is trying to escape? The resistance. Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, that's an interesting theory. But it's just a theory. We don't have time to test it. And even if you're right, removing her from all EM sources would mean removing her from life support. The monitors are the only thing telling us if her condition changes. Then we monitor her manually, Sarah said firmly. The old-fashioned way. Human touch, observation, basic tools that don't emit frequencies. Give me 6 hours. That's all I'm asking. If I'm wrong, we've lost nothing. She was going to die anyway according to your timeline. But if I'm right. If you're right, you'll have discovered something every specialist missed, Dr. Chen said slowly. Including me. Sarah met her eyes. I'm not trying to show anyone up. I just want to save that little girl. Dr. Chen studied Sarah's face and saw something there that reminded her why she'd become a doctor in the first place. Before the politics, before the ego, before the need to be right. When it was just about saving lives. Okay, Dr. Chen said. 6 hours. But I'm staying with you. If anything goes wrong. If anything goes wrong, we're exactly where we'd be if we did nothing, Sarah finished. The desperate experiment. They returned to room 347 together. Sarah explained her theory to Serena, who listened with a mixture of hope and terror. You're saying the hospital itself might be killing her? I'm saying her body might be overwhelmed, Sarah clarified. And we're going to give it a chance to reset. But Mrs. Serena, you need to understand, this might not work. We might be wrong. Are you willing to try? Serena looked at her daughter, at the fading light on her skin, at the shallow rise and fall of her chest. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Try anything. Sarah and Dr. Chen worked quickly. They disconnected every electronic device in the room except for the basic life support, and even that they modified, using older, lower-frequency equipment from storage. They covered the windows to block external electromagnetic radiation. They turned off the room's communication systems. Then they waited. For the first hour, nothing changed. Kira's breathing remained shallow. Her skin stayed pale gray. Serena held her daughter's hand, praying to whatever forces might listen. For the second hour, still nothing. Dr. Chen checked Kira's pulse manually every 10 minutes, counting heartbeats the way doctors had done thousands of years ago, before technology made it automatic. But in the third hour, something shifted. The faintest flicker of gold appeared on Kira's cheek. Just for a second, then it was gone. Serena gasped. Did you see that? Sarah had seen it. She'd been watching Kira's face with an intensity that made her eyes burn. Come on, sweetheart, she whispered. Come back to us. Another flicker. This time on Kira's forehead. The bioluminescent patterns were trying to return. And as the fourth hour passed, Kira's eyes opened. The recovery. Awakening. Kira's eyes were confused at first, unfocused. She blinked slowly, looking around the darkened room as if seeing it for the first time. Her mother's sob of joy was the loudest sound in the silent space. Kira? Baby, can you hear me? Serena leaned over her daughter, tears streaming down her golden face. The little girl's lips moved. Her voice was weak, barely a whisper. Mama? Why is it so quiet? Sarah and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. Quiet. To Kira, who was used to sensing an entire spectrum of electromagnetic activity, this room must feel like sensory deprivation. How do you feel? Sarah asked gently, kneeling beside the bed. Kira's eyes focused on her. Tired. But the noise is gone. The painful noise. What painful noise, sweetheart? Dr. Chen asked, pulling out a basic notepad to record observations the old way. It was everywhere, Kira said, her voice getting slightly stronger. Like screaming. All the machines screaming at once. It hurt so much. I tried to make it stop, but I couldn't. Her small hand touched her forehead. So I shut down. I made myself go quiet so it wouldn't hurt anymore. Sarah felt her throat tighten. The child had described her disease perfectly. It wasn't an illness attacking her. It was a defense mechanism. Her body had been shutting down to escape the pain of electromagnetic overload. "You're safe now," Sarah said softly. "We made the room quiet for you. Can you feel the difference?" Kira nodded slowly. The golden color was gradually returning to her skin. The bioluminescent patterns were growing brighter, like stars coming out as night deepened. "It feels peaceful," the miracle explained. Over the next 2 hours, Kira continued to improve. Her breathing deepened and steadied. Her skin returned to its normal golden hue. The patterns on her forehead danced with light, responding to the natural electromagnetic fields in the room, the Earth's magnetic field, the distant radiation from stars, the gentle bioelectric fields from the people around her. Dr. Chen ran tests manually, using equipment that generated minimal EM interference. What she found was astonishing. Kira's neural pathways were not just stable, they were recovering. The cascade syndrome was reversing itself. "It's like watching a flower open after a long winter," Dr. Chen said quietly to Sarah. "I've never seen anything like it." By dawn, when the senior doctors arrived for their morning rounds, they found Kira sitting up in bed, drinking juice, and talking to her mother. The child who had been hours from death was now asking when she could go home. Dr. Zenther stood in the doorway, his multiple eyes blinking in astonishment. "This is impossible." "No," Sarah said, exhausted but smiling. "Just improbable. There's a difference." Sharing the discovery. Word spread quickly through the hospital. The human nurse who had saved a dying Villani child by turning off the machines everyone else relied on. Some doctors were impressed. Others were defensive, upset that such a simple solution had eluded them. Dr. Zenther, to his credit, was not defensive. He called a hospital-wide meeting that afternoon. Sarah stood in front of hundreds of medical professionals from dozens of species, explaining her reasoning. "I didn't discover anything new," she said. "I just looked at it differently. As nurses, we're taught to observe the whole patient, not just their symptoms. We notice when someone is uncomfortable, when something in their environment is wrong." Kira's body was screaming that something was wrong, but we were too focused on the disease to hear what she was trying to tell us. Varash raised a crystalline hand. "But the Villani cascade syndrome has killed many. Your discovery suggests that every one of those deaths might have been preventable. How did we miss this?" Sarah took a breath. "Because medical science advances so fast that sometimes we forget the basics. We trust our machines more than our observations. We look at scans instead of looking at patients. And sometimes, the most advanced technology isn't what's needed. Sometimes, you just need someone willing to sit in the dark and hold a child's hand until you figure out what's really wrong." The room was silent. Then, slowly, applause began. It started with the human doctors, but quickly spread to the others. Even those who felt embarrassed by the oversight recognized the importance of what had happened. The resistance returns. But not everyone was pleased. Later that day, Sarah was called to the office of Administrator Kelvin, a stern Regellian who ran the hospital with military efficiency. "Nurse Mitchell," he said coldly, "your actions last night violated 17 hospital protocols. You disconnected approved monitoring equipment. You conducted an experimental treatment without proper authorization. You put a patient at increased risk." Sarah stood straight. "I saved her life." "You got lucky," Kelvin corrected. "What if you'd been wrong? What if removing the monitoring equipment had prevented us from detecting a crisis?" "Then we would have been exactly where we were anyway," Sarah replied. "That child was dying. The doctors had given up. I took a calculated risk based on observation and logic. And it worked." "This time," Kelvin said. But we cannot have nurses making independent medical decisions. That is not your role. Your role is to follow orders, administer treatments as prescribed, and alert doctors to changes. Nothing more. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. My role is to care for patients. To be their advocate. To notice what others miss. That's what nursing has always been. Not in this hospital, Kelvin said flatly. I'm formally reprimanding you. This will go in your permanent record. Consider yourself fortunate that I'm not terminating your employment. An unexpected ally. Sarah left Kelvin's office feeling defeated. Yes, she'd saved Kira. But at what cost? A reprimand meant she'd never advance in her career. Other hospitals would see it and question her judgment. She was sitting in the break room, staring at nothing, when Dr. Chen found her. I heard about Kelvin, the doctor said, sitting down beside her. He's an idiot. Sarah managed a weak smile. He's my boss. He's still an idiot. Dr. Chen handed Sarah a tablet. Look at this. It was a message from the Galactic Medical Board, the organization that sets standards for healthcare across all member species. The message was addressed to Sarah. Ms. Mitchell, your innovative approach to treating Villani Cascade syndrome has been reviewed by our board. We would like to invite you to present your findings at the upcoming Galactic Medical Summit. Your work represents a paradigm shift in how we approach electromagnetic sensitivity disorders across multiple species. Congratulations on your breakthrough. Sarah stared at the message. They want me to present? At the summit? The most prestigious medical conference in the galaxy, Dr. Chen confirmed. Sarah, what you did wasn't just about saving one child. You've potentially saved thousands. Maybe millions. Every species that's sensitive to EM frequencies, and there are at least 20 we know of, can benefit from this discovery. But Kelvin said. Kelvin is about to be overruled, Dr. Chen interrupted. The Galactic Medical Board contacted the hospital directly. They're recommending you for the Healer Star, the highest honor they give. Kelvin can't reprimand someone the board is honoring. He'll have to rescind it. The price of success. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's life changed dramatically. She presented her findings at the summit, where doctors from across the galaxy listened intently. Several major hospitals implemented new protocols for treating EM-sensitive species. Textbooks were rewritten. Medical school curricula were updated. Sarah received the Healer Star in a ceremony attended by thousands. She stood on stage, uncomfortable in formal clothes, while beings from 100 worlds applauded her achievement. But the attention came with a price. She was offered prestigious positions at major hospitals. Research facilities wanted her to lead studies. Medical companies wanted to hire her as a consultant. Everyone wanted Sarah Mitchell the discoverer, the breakthrough innovator. No one seemed to want Sarah Mitchell the nurse who just wanted to take care of patients. Return to basics. 3 months after saving Kira's life, Sarah made a decision. She turned down all the offers. She declined the research positions and the consulting jobs. She stayed exactly where she was, a floor nurse at the Galactic Medical Center, working the night shift. Her friends thought she was crazy. You could be famous, one of them said. You could be rich. Why stay here? Sarah's answer was simple, because this is where the patients are. She returned to her routine. Checking vital signs. Administering medications. Sitting with frightened families during long, dark nights. Holding hands. Offering comfort. Noticing the small details that everyone else missed. But now, when she made observations, people listened. When she suggested alternative approaches, doctors paid attention. She'd proven that nurses weren't just assistants, they were essential members of the medical team with unique perspectives that could save lives. Kira's gift. On the 6-month anniversary of Kira's recovery, Sarah received a package. Inside was a small crystal that glowed with soft golden light, a traditional Villani gift of gratitude. Attached was a note written in careful handwriting. Dear Sarah, thank you for teaching me that silence can be healing. Thank you for sitting with me in the dark. Thank you for not giving up. I'm healthy now. I can hear the star songs again. But I'll never forget the quiet room where you saved my life by turning off all the noise. You showed everyone that sometimes the best medicine is just paying attention. With love. Kira. P.S. Mama says when I grow up, I want to be a nurse just like you. Sarah kept that note in her pocket every day she worked. On difficult shifts, when she was tired and frustrated, she would touch it and remember why she'd chosen this profession. The lesson spreads. A year later, medical schools across the galaxy had created a new required course, observational care. It taught doctors and nurses to look at patients holistically, to consider environmental factors, to question assumptions, and to remember that sometimes the simplest solution was the right one. The course was nicknamed the Mitchell Method, though Sarah herself hated that name. It's not a method, she insisted whenever anyone asked. It's just caring enough to pay attention. But the name stuck. And slowly, healthcare began to change. The balance between technology and observation shifted. Machines were still used, but they were questioned more. Patients were asked about their environment, their comfort, their experiences, not just their symptoms. Nurses gained more respect in the medical hierarchy. Their observations were valued equally with doctors' diagnoses. Teams became more collaborative, more willing to listen to unconventional ideas. The real victory. Years later, Sarah would look back on that night in room 347 and realize that saving Kira's life had been important. But it wasn't the real victory. The real victory was changing how an entire galaxy thought about medicine. The real victory was reminding everyone that healthcare was about people, not just diseases. The real victory was proving that you didn't need to be the smartest or the most educated to make a difference, you just needed to care enough to try. And in a universe full of brilliant doctors and advanced technology, that simple human quality, stubborn, relentless care, turned out to be the most powerful medicine of all. Epilogue: The Quiet Room. 20 years after that night, the Galactic Medical Center created a permanent exhibit in its main lobby. It was a recreation of room 347, exactly as it had looked that night, darkened, with all the electronic equipment removed, with only basic manual tools for monitoring patients. A plaque beside the exhibit read, "The Quiet Room." Here, a human nurse named Sarah Mitchell saved a dying Villani child by turning off the machines everyone else trusted. She reminded us that sometimes progress means going backward. Sometimes the most advanced treatment is the simplest. Sometimes healing requires nothing more than darkness, silence, and someone who refuses to give up. This room stands as a reminder to all who practice medicine: look at your patients, not just your screens. Listen to their experiences, not just their symptoms. And never forget that the most powerful tool in medicine isn't technology, it's compassion. Students would come to stand in that room, experiencing the silence, imagining what Sarah had done. And they would leave with a renewed commitment to seeing their patients as whole beings, not just collections of symptoms. Because Sarah Mitchell, a simple human nurse from Earth, had taught the galaxy the most important lesson medicine could learn. That sometimes the best cure for a dying patient wasn't more technology. It was more humanity. And in a universe that had almost forgotten what that meant, one human reminded everyone else of its power. The end. Story message: true healing often comes not from advanced technology, but from the simple human quality of actually paying attention to patients. Sometimes the most powerful medical tool is compassion combined with the courage to question conventional wisdom when something doesn't feel right.